from the very beginning, one of the conversations that we had is we agreed, okay, we'll do this marriage teaching, this marriage Sunday class. But if we're going to do it, it's on one condition, and that is that we can do it authentically. I'm not going to go in there with a church face on and hide all of our stuff. We're going to talk about the things that plague us because we believe that the things that we're struggling with are probably the same things that other people that are struggling with, which we'll be able to work it out together and figure things out and share authentically. And I think that has been a signature to everything that we've done since then, is that we're transparent, we're authentic, and we talk about the hard things, and we keep it very relevant to what it is that we've overcome, or now these days, even things that we've helped other people overcome.
Well, welcome to Pillow Talk. I'm Grant. This is my wife, Stephanie. And after almost 38 years of marriage, we've discovered how to communicate for better understanding and yoke our differences to pull stronger toward a common purpose.
As certified marriage coaches, we want to help reignite passion and connectedness in your marriage through intimate, authentic, and unguarded conversations. Now let's have some pillow talk.
Let's do it.
All right, welcome to Pillow Talk. Again, I hate the word excited, but we're excited because we have a very special couple with us tonight. This couple that's with us today has always loved one another passionately, but they fought just as passionately. Their first few years of marriage, they claim to have fought every single day.
That's crazy, guys.
We didn't fight that much.
We didn't fight that much.
Okay. Although they were Christians who loved God and one another, they also could hardly stand to stay in the same room together. While they longed for greater connection, they felt powerless to experience it. Fast forward to today, they've equipped couples worldwide on how to live purpose-focused over problem-focused. They have shared the stage with many celebrity speakers such as Les Brown and John Maxwell, which happens to be mine and Stephanie's mentor.
Yeah.
But for Stephanie and I, the greatest thing they've accomplished is becoming our Florida family. We are so looking forward to introducing you to today's guest, our friends, Married for a Purpose founders, Greg and Julie Gorman.
Hey, guys.
Oh, we love you all.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be
Oh my
with you guys
gosh.
this evening.
We've really looked forward to this for a while.
Yeah,
Us too. We're long overdue, aren't we?
that's
We
for
are.
sure.
We only get to chat with you guys if we had you on if we have you on a podcast.
Yeah.
So.
It's
You're
outstanding.
so busy. You're so busy just transforming marriages that,
Hey, we're going to go on some vacations together, though. So that's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
fun. I'm
Yes.
excited about that.
Absolutely. I was listening to you, Grant, and just thinking back to those days. Everything you said, by the way, in the intro there is true.
Yep.
We literally, our marriage started off, we both drug a bunch of baggage and hurts and just a lot of wounds into our marriage. And we really struggled for the first several years. The first 2 years were literally fighting every single day.
That is not an
No,
exaggeration.
it's not.
No fabrication.
Robust fights at that.
Mhm.
The first 7 years were super, super difficult. I would say that at the 2-year mark, we got a pretty major layer of breakthrough. And then at the 7-year mark, we got kind of a major layer of breakthrough, right?
Mhm.
And then it's just been layers and layers year after year of additional breakthroughs all the way up and through even our current day and time.
Yep, indeed.
That's awesome, man.
I love that. And one of my favorite scriptures, I love layering. I love it. It talks about the layers of meaning and depths of purpose. That you guys have depth of purpose because you have allowed the layers to just become so ingrained and just secure together. And I think that speaks greatly to how God is using you guys because of that very thing, that you didn't just jump around and do a bunch of different things. It was everything that happened to you and through you became a layer that in your own marriage purpose. And now that DNA is you sow seeds all the time.
I think one of the things that it did is it instills so much hope for us, because we know if God could heal our relationship. And today, like, I'm married, he is my best friend. He is my partner in every aspect. And I know that where we came from, that if God can do what he did in our relationship, he can do it for anybody.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
for sure. So I'm curious to know what led you to go from the pains of the marriage that you all worked your way through to wanting to help other people work their way through those pains.
Mm. Well, again, I think it was a layered process. Ironically or funny or some bizarre word, I suppose, as it applies for us. early on in our marriage, we were asked at about that 2-year mark.
It was at the 2-year mark.
To lead a marriage group at the church, not just a marriage group, but like a Sunday morning marriage group, right? And it was
supposed to be for young couples,
right?
And there were really old people. There were people in their 50s in that class.
Oh my gosh, that's
old.
But we one of the things that we always shared in common was that we do love presenting, we do love leading, and we've been gifted in that. There's been fruit in that in years that there probably shouldn't have been fruit, but God blessed it anyway, which reveals the grace of God and how well he can use. I'm always encouraged when I read the disciple stories. We sometimes look at those guys and think, oh my gosh, those boneheads, you know what I mean? But then there's a mirror that I look in and I'm like, oh yeah, that one too.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
I could have been a disciple.
Yeah, I could have
exactly. There you go. And so funny enough, there have been an anointing on our marriage for marriage ministry from the beginning, even when we were still a train wreck. But I think as the years progressed and we found more and more healing, we found more confidence, not that we've got all of the answers or anything like that, but just that we've got a lot of dirt under our fingernails and we were willing to share it. And so from the very beginning, one of the conversations that we had is we agreed, okay, we'll do this marriage teaching, this marriage Sunday class. But if we're going to do it, it's on one condition, and that is that we can do it authentically. I'm not going to go in there with the church face on and hide all of our stuff. We're going to talk about the things that plague us because we believe that the things that we're struggling with are probably the same things that other people that are struggling with, which we'll be able to work it out together and figure things out and share authentically. And I think that has been a signature to everything that we've done since then, is that we're transparent, we're authentic, and we talk about the hard things and we keep it very relevant to what it is that we've overcome, or now these days, even things that we've helped other people overcome. What would you add to that, sweetheart?
Yeah, I think it always was there. There was a passion for marriage and family. God really up-leveled that passion probably about 12 years ago. I remember our son was standing at a bus stop, and as he was standing there, they were talking about what they were going to do on the weekend. And every single one of the kids, now there were like at least 7 to 10 families that were represented there. And our son was the only one that wasn't having to decide whether he was going to go to mom's house or dad's house that weekend.
Wow.
And it shocked us. And we realized like there's something fundamentally happening, that families are falling apart. And God began to deal with us that the center of who we are had always been about marriage and family. And we had incredible breakthrough. And so we really became passionate about combining our strengths and our talents to make a difference for marriage and family. And as you guys know today, if we were to tagline what it is that Married for a Purpose stands for, it's to radically restore God's intent for the family and to transform how culture views and values the family, because there's almost a disdain and a laughing off of the family. There's so many jokes about the family and the brokenness of family. But man, there needs to be something done about family, because as we get it right within the four walls of our home, that's when we actually have that ripple effect and that compound effect that we can change our culture and change our world through, I believe, the family structure.
Well, I love what you guys teach. And one of the things that attracted us to you from the very beginning, you talk about the 3 overarching principles of marriage is to make God known, to bring him pleasure, and to demonstrate his unconditional love. And what you just said right there, Julie, I think that just beautifully describes that. And you guys, you have a different approach to marriage. And this is, again, something that we have just so taken into our hearts, and it's just part of who we are now. And we just thank you for bringing this mindset to us. But it's that approach that many other well, I don't know many other, but you're purpose focused and not problem focused. And that's a different approach. What led you to that mindset? Why not focus on problems and try to fix them? I think that's what people think is you got to fix the problem. So kind of, again, I'm sure there's some layers here, but where did that mindset begin to shift for you guys? And then as it began to get momentum, you realize that this is something that we need to apply and teach marriages, just to do this differently, have a different approach than what has always been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, Stephanie, because it does open up a place for us to talk about what makes Married for a Purpose very, very different than other marriage ministries that we've come in contact with. And that's not to say anything bad about any other marriage ministry out there. They've all got a place, and there have been a lot of other marriage ministries that have helped a lot of other couples. And so we're grateful for that. This is, but we're very, very abundant in our mindset. There are plenty of work for all of us to do.
Absolutely.
Right? But my response to that is that as we grew, one of the other things that we did share in common, and by the way, we had to really look at one point to figure out what the common ground was, because we, like so many other couples, started kind of defining ourselves and defining our relationship based off of our differences. And sometimes we do that very innocently, but the Bible tells us that a house divided won't stand. So it's just not a good idea, even if it is in jest and it's kind of playful. I think we really need to become habitual about defining our relationship and learning how to identify the things that we do share in common and building on common ground. So as I started to say, we both shared a common idea, a common interest to become better people. We were Christ followers, so we always wanted to become better Christ followers. We are business people and sales people and leaders, and so we always wanted to become better. And so we were doing a lot of self-development, a lot of spiritual development and things of that nature. And over the years, we just grew as people, We followed John Maxwell, read a bunch of his books, things of that nature. And so as we continue to develop ourselves, we realized that we were becoming better people. And it wasn't just in the workplace. It wasn't just as we were leading people in business. It wasn't just at church. It was happening within our home. We were learning how to become better people. I was learning how to love Julie better. She was learning how to love me better. We were learning how to respect one another better. And over time, as we grew, we realized that one of the things that one of my mentors shared with me in this way, he said, thought leaders throughout time have all agreed on one central thing. They've disagreed on many things and gone to war on some of them, but they've all agreed on one central thing. And it doesn't matter if they're Baptist or Buddhist, doesn't matter what era of time they came from. They all agree we become what we think about. King Solomon, the wisest dude to ever sport a pair of flip-flops, said it this way. He said, as we think in our heart, so we become. And so if that's true, then I think what we realized is we put this to the test in our life, in our finances, in our business, in our leadership, in our parenting, in our marriage. And what we realized is that if that statement is true, that all of these thought leaders throughout time, they got that part right. So what do we do about it? What does it mean to live with the understanding, right? That as we think in our heart, well, it means that if we focus on the problems, even if we're trying to fix the problems, address the problems, deal with the issues and so on and so forth, the subject matter is still problem, still issue. And that pulls negatively at our spirit because we get in a rat, on that rat wheel that we can't get off of. We're just spinning our wheels all the time. And so what Julie and I learned is that we could take all different aspects of life and we could flip it on its ear and ask a different question instead of how do we fix the problem? Because we're not suggesting that we ignore the problems.
Right.
There's real giants in life,
Yeah,
and we need to be dealing with them. But there's a better way than what I think most of us have been taught to do it. Instead of just addressing and dealing with and trying to fix problems, we ask this question: what do we want? What is the desired outcome in this situation? This problem, okay, fair enough, it's real, but we don't want to feed that, because what you feed grows and what you starve dies. So I don't want to spend all my time in my relationship justifying why I'm right and why I've got a reason to be getting the short end of the stick and trying to convince the world of that. Because as I do that, again, I'm literally fighting for my limitations and feeding the wrong thing. What I want to do is I want to determine, okay, what do we agree is the desired outcome? And once we can establish together what that is in unity, now we may have to ask the question a few times, Grant. But as we ask that and we get it on a high enough level where we find, okay, this we can agree on, that gives us the common ground. House divided won't stand, but a house united, right? Yeah. Certainly will. And so as we capitalize on that, then it gives us sort of the way forward to begin to work towards an agreed outcome, a vision that we both desire.
Because now we're fighting for the same thing, because we both want that same thing, rather than me sitting there fighting for how I'm going to get what I want. And when we do that, there's this unity, and you start pulling in the same direction. It's no longer me trying to fix Greg or Greg trying to fix me. And the same thing in our coaching practice for all of the people that have went through the program. There's this place where all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, we actually really want the same things. We're just fighting about the methodology or how it's going to go about, or this little thing that really has no matter, because this is what we want. And now there's an inspiration to make changes, not because Greg thinks I need to make changes or I think he needs to make changes, but because I realize, oh, crud, I got to make some changes if I really truly want this desired outcome.
That's good.
And now we're pulling in the same direction, and there's no stopping us.
Wow.
That's so good.
Yeah, but that don't light your fire.
I know. I started thinking, no, there's so much meat right there. And I think it's, serving each other and leveraging your strengths to get to that when you're focusing on that common ground and moving towards it. Just your energy just has to shift. You can't be in both places. You can't be in a place of problem and a place of purpose.
Yeah.
All it takes is a little bit of just reshifting what you're thinking about together. And then you forget the little stuff, because you are focusing on something.
It takes our eye off of the rear view.
Yeah.
Test, and it takes our eye off of the scoreboard, right? And puts our eye on something that we both are moving in unity towards. And fair enough, we've simplified it, but it's not rocket science either, it's then building, what's the next logical step to move us closer to that outcome, one step at a time until we actually get there. It's revolutionized our entire life, our marriage, our parenting, again, our finances, our business, our leadership, everything that we do.
And that's awesome. One thing that's really been on my mind a lot lately is the stress that, financial hardship can be on a marriage. And,
yes,
in today's economic ways, and it depends on what field you're in, I'm sure how you're feeling it, but we're in the housing type industry, and, we're seeing already it go from 70 to 80 loans going through a friend of ours mortgage company in a month, down to 10 last month. So you're starting to see the real stress and the pressure come on that. So being one of the things that you all say all the time, that you tend to gravitate towards what you contemplate, how would you move into this next year? 2023 is just getting started. What would you tell everybody to think about so their marriage will be strong, even though there might be a little stress that things ain't quite as, easy as it was last year or the year before?
Yeah, one of the things that we have done, the best practice that we have implemented in the last couple of years is slowing down. The best practice that we can do and the best gift we can give to one another is to slow down and to set the priority. We have a conversation all the time of simply asking one another, okay, babe, we got a lot of different activities. There's a lot of responsibilities. There are a lot of things that are pulling for our attention, and we could put our hand in the ring for all of those things, but you can't do everything. I don't think God calls us to do everything. And so what we've learned is we're not going to lie about our capacity. We're going to let God's peace set our pace for the rhythm of our life. And we're going to prioritize one another. And the best way that we've learned how to do that is to really know when we're going to say yes and when we're going to say no, whether that's activities, whether it's financial, ventures or anything along that line. It's really slowing down and saying, okay, what is the priority for us? And we do that for the year.
Mm-hmm.
We do that for the month. We do that for the week. And we've actually broken it down now to the day. And there's not a day that doesn't go by. And if it does, by the next day, we're asking the question, and that is, what's the priority for you this week? What's the priority for you in this day? How can I support you in this day? What is our priority together? And so understanding one another's priority of maybe an activity that has taken precedence. And it might just be something as simple as like, I need time with you. I don't care what the bank says. I don't care what my job says. I don't care what anybody says. We need time to connect. And so that may not happen until Friday, but we know that the priority that week is to get to Friday or to table everything until we can get to Friday so that we can have that one-on-one time. But it's really saying, what is the priority for you in this day? And by doing that, I can't tell you how easy life has become for us, because it gives us the margin to be able to table some things, even table decisions. So often it feels like we have to make this urgent decision.
We've slowed that
but
process.
We have slowed that process down by discussing the priority.
Mm-hmm.
What would you add, babe?
I love that. Well, I'm going to take it a slightly different direction, if that's okay, Grant. When you were asking your question, I was thinking to one of the stories in the Bible, and this is reflected in more than one place, but I love the story that we are told, the historical documentation of Joshua and Caleb and their experience. And I think in times like we are in, and honestly, if somebody watches this, listens to this later on, 10 years down the road, it's probably still going to be just as applicable then as it was back in Joshua and Caleb's day, and it is in Grant, Stephanie, and Greg and Julie's day, right?
It's almost like it's a 10-year cycle.
It's always applicable is what I'm driving at, and that's we can read in scripture where there were 12 spies, if you will. There were 12 people that were sent out into the promised land, and they were supposed to scope out and kind of come back and report what they saw. And 10 of those spies, and I think that this is sometimes something that can get overlooked, but 10 of the 12 spies came back, and listen to me now, they told the truth. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like they came back and lied about what they saw. Mm-hmm. They actually shared the facts more accurately around what it was that they saw. And that report was very negative. If you've not read it, go back and read it again, because you realize very quickly, that it was a very gloomy, doomy report. It's like, man, there's a bunch of giants in there, and those dudes are mean and ugly and well equipped and battle trained. And how are we going to take this land? We would be crazy to try to come up against those people. And there's lots of them too, way more than us. Joshua and Caleb came back and they aligned themselves with a different truth. It was the truth of God's promise for their life.
Right.
And I'll pause right here and just say that at any given moment in our life and time, we can choose to see the narrative in one or two different ways. One aligns our life and our outcome and our circumstances with who God is and what his promises are for our life, which is what Joshua and Caleb did well. By the way, they almost got killed for it. And I think it's a good thing to be aware of. But the bottom line is that we need to choose which narrative we're going to align ourselves with. So the answer to your question really is I really want to pursue life in such a way that I'm like Joshua and Caleb. I'm like, man, there's big old giants, but imagine if we hooked them dudes up to a grain mill, they'd be able to churn out some grain, we'd be making some bread up in here. So I think that there's always two ways to interpret things. And I think that we need to take God at his word. I think things are are overall getting better more than they are getting worse. I think there are always opportunity for us to see peril. But I think if we pan back and we look at time in a larger scope than just maybe our lifetime even, or the last few years, and judging whether things are getting better or worse based off that versus the span of time, there are less hungry people in the world today than there's ever been in the existence of this globe. There are more people being treated medically now than there have been in ever. There is less slavery on this planet than there has ever been in the history of this planet. And so, I don't know. I think I choose to see that things are getting better, not worse. I might have to weather some storms, but I believe God will help me weather those. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
That's exactly. It's I mean, I was looking for what you had to say. That's what I was
it's
looking
just
for.
encouraging people. Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's encouraging people and helping them to, again, it goes back to that mindset, encouraging people to be intentional about how you're thinking about things.
Right.
Satan always wants to divide us and make us think that we're the only ones out there. You know, he wants us to feel like we're the Impala out on the Serengeti, you know,
that's been separated from
and the fact is, like what you said, Greg, we've been through this over and over and over. We're not the only ones to ever go through it. Our marriage ain't the only one that's felt the pressure of a little financial strain, and we're going to be okay if we just keep looking forward.
I do think it's important, though, to Julie's point, when there's financial strain, it's so tempting, guys, to turn on one another and to start pointing blame about why we're in the situation we're in. And sometimes life just happens, it's just circumstantial. Or maybe we didn't make well thought out decisions and such. But at the end of the day, the only way that we move forward again is unifying together, figuring out what the priority is, maybe in this case, in our finances, and then unifying around that and building a plan that both of us can live with, and then move forward, towards what we agree on.
It was interesting when COVID first hit a couple years back, we made our living by being speakers, right? And I remember when all of a sudden everything was getting shut down, and it was that moment of, wow, what are we going to do? And there was a real reality that we had to face. And I remember as I was taking a shower and God showed up there and said, Julie, don't let what you don't know stop you from remembering what you do know. And it literally just caused my mind to come to this peaceful hush. It's like, okay, well, what do I know? I know that you've called us to marriage. You called us to family. That hasn't changed. The circumstances of my life hadn't changed. And so I think the more that we can pause and get maybe the perspective of heaven by remembering what it is that we do know. We know God's good. We know that he's faithful. We know that of times in the past where we faced impossibilities, but he's always showed up, maybe not in the way that we wanted him to or expected him to, but certainly in a way that superseded probably all of those desires. And he caused us to grow, and he's good and he's faithful. So, those kinds of things, if you're facing difficulty, we've had a lot of different ups and downs and turns in our marriage. And there have been times of a lot of plentiful, and there have been times where we were washing out bags so that our kids could take their meals to school. And so in all of those seasons, it's the place of trust, and it's an abandoned trust where we realize that God has got our back. And when we go to that place of knowing who he is and what he's promised, we can release the outcome and the timelines.
That's very good. Yeah, you're talking about washing out bags. We didn't do that, but we remember Hamburger Helper without the hamburger. We remember.
Yeah.
We used to live in a mobile home, and when the wind would blow, the Christmas tree would move. And
Yeah.
We're a class act here in Oklahoma.
Yep. Totally.
We can all relate to that. I think that it's one thing too to start out that way. It's another thing to go, and I know you guys have experienced this as well, to kind of feel like you're up on plane and things are going well, and then find yourself set way back.
How did this happen?
Yeah. And I think that a lot of couples can relate to that. And again, it points back to all the more important for us to unite together rather than turning on one another, turn toward one another and fight for unity above all else. And it's when we're unified and we find what the desired outcome is and what the priority is that we agree that we are able to unify, and together we can just simply do more. But we do have to get over ourselves, and we have to grow up. and mature in the way that we communicate and get out of our own way so that we can build forward together in hard times.
Well, I don't want to get off of here without giving our listeners a chance to really know what you all do, because what you've done has meant so much to us. We've been through most of your programs, if not all. So I would just, the Married for a Purpose, that you have many programs that lead couples in the directions to a better marriage. You have to thrive in marriage, you got Discovering Your Married Purpose, a higher way of thinking, and New Habits of Living, I believe.
Yep.
And can you just kind of describe those to what if someone would say, man, I want to get started and this would be a good.
Sure. Yeah, the Thrive series is a great place to start. It's the 101, so it doesn't matter whether you've been married 5 minutes or 5 decades. It really is a place of those best practices, putting them into place. The Discover Your Marriage Purpose helps you from a high level really determine God's fingerprint design and the whole reason why are we married and what's the purpose for our marriage individually. Our individual marriage. And then the higher way of thinking really deals with what we were talking about. It's like what we think about, we bring about. So what is it that we're thinking about, and some best practices to put in place to control our thoughts, our thought life. And then the New Habits of Living are living out the very principles that will maximize our outcomes in our marriage relationship. Now, here's the great thing though. You don't have to choose just one, because we actually have the membership, which gives access to all of that curriculum. It's only $39 a month, and you get 2 coaching calls in a group community as well. So that's a really great value. I want to point it back to you all, though, to do a marriage reboot with you, because that's the most intensive and really causes incredible breakthrough.
One of the things I love about the content that you guys create, you guys are so much, you're incredible content creators, and the pathways that you put out there for people, it is unique. It's the programs you just talked about, $39 a month. Every marriage, you don't spend that much going out on a date night. And it's to be intentional. If somebody were to say, our marriage, I just don't know what to do. Is like, this is some information. It's not information. This is content that is real. This is stuff that people can take and they can apply it. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to be exactly in the same place. You can start together, and it's powerful. And I want our audience and our listeners to hear that it's not just something that's, here's another thing to do. No, this is something that you can become intentional with your marriage. This can be a priority that you can put on your calendar and you can do, and you can grow together. And it's just super powerful. And then the reboot, that is the ultimate. Nothing like this. We've been through it. We're now certified to do it, but guys, you created this out of all these layers that we've been talking about. The culmination of all that is for a couple to be able to come in and spend a couple of days in this process, and to be able to just unpack in a safe place, and to begin to learn to move forward and build on that common ground and find out what they really want. It's powerful to see a couple go through that. And God has so blessed you guys with that content that's come through you. It is certainly anointed. Yeah.
Really appreciate that, Stephanie. I want to dovetail back on something that you said early in your comment there, just about, some of the video curriculum and the books that we've written. God has been so good to us in helping us to put things, I think, in things that maybe we know, but put them with a little bit of a fresh perspective. And I think what's most important to us, we've been pretty tyrannical. We've definitely been intentional about trying to take concepts that maybe are common knowledge, like it's head knowledge, we know it, like good's the enemy of great, right? We could all probably intellectually agree that good is the enemy of great, right? But what does it look like to take that concept and live from it so that it benefits our life?
Right.
Well, it comes down to our decision making and having some protocols, kind of some methodologies, if you will, some things to test our decisions so that we're not giving our life to good and settling for good when we really, God's got great for us. Which do you want? Do you want good or do you want great? Well, it's kind of an obvious answer. And sometimes it's not
I
a matter,
want good.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really not a matter of more work or working harder. It's just a different methodology of approaching life in a way that we can bring these concepts into very practical application in our life. And that's something that we try to do. You mentioned the reboot. And so briefly, because I know we're getting short on time, but I want to just address that very briefly and kind of unpack what that is, if I may. Is that apropos?
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Julie and I've been working with, couples in marriage, in ministry, really for over 2 decades. We've been doing it professionally for over a decade at this point, and we've been training other people to do the same. But we're very fortunate in that God gave us a process. Julie called me one time. She's like, we've kind of got our own pretty unique process. And I'm like, well, let's document it out. You document it out, in other words, and I'll come home and we'll dial this thing in. And the short version is that it really is a 2-day deep dive, one-on-one with us or one of our coaches, preferably. And
Preferably you all, right?
that's right.
Preferably us all.
That's all.
And the reboot is really a place where you do a one-on-one deep dive with that couple in their marriage, and whether they're a good to great couple or whether they're somebody that's really in deep kimchi and they're struggling and they're trying to, pull out of a pit and keep from divorcing potentially. And it provides an atmosphere where there's no judgment, and everybody can really feel heard, feel listened to, feel understood, and even feel validated for why they feel the way that they feel. Where your spouse, because of the type of questions that facilitate through this process,
Right.
y'all begin to really hear one another's heart in a way that maybe your emotions have kept you from, or your circumstances have kept you from in real life. And then from there, obviously, there's a couple of things that are very significant. We just help you construct and build not only your purpose and discover what God's idea was for putting the two of you together to begin with, but also to create a vision that gives you energy. In other words, a place, a life defined that you agree on, that is the life that you want to live. And we break it down into several domains. There's actually a total of 8. There are 5 primary, but there are a total of different 8 domains of your life that we address. And then from that vision, it gives you the life, the encouragement, the inspiration, along with the discipline to make the mental changes and the habits of thought, the changes that you need to make as you go back in order to align yourself with that ideal life that God already has designed. And I'm certain that he wants for that couple that is wanting to go either from good to great or to go from the depths of, despair into actually thriving in their marriage. What did I leave out, sweetheart?
I don't think so. I think you did a good job. Yeah.
Okay, I did a good job.
Just like when you pray, you do a good job.
It's a great job.
Well, what I love too is everything you guys do is authentic. You mentioned that earlier, and I just want to bring that up again, that you're very authentic. We've had the privilege of being around you in some pretty critical seasons and in some good decisions, and you guys are authentic. And I just want our listeners to know that this is something this is not a fly-by-night thing. This is legit, and this is a couple that dearly, dearly follows the passion of God's heart, and the purpose is to restore family and to change that culture. That the foundation and the pillars of a powerful and a successful society starts from the unit of a family. And so you guys are just charging the front line with that, and we couldn't be more honored to be linking arms with you guys in that. So
we love marriage.
We love you all.
We do love you all. But I think it's just worth saying, we love marriage. Marriage is messy. Bottom line, life is messy, right? But marriage is so beautiful.
Oh my
in
goodness.
all of its messiness.
Yeah.
You guys certainly are a living testament, that things aren't always going to be perfect, but as you lean into one another and you work through and you're dedicated to one another and you work through the hard seasons, man, it's on the backside of that where it's like, I had no idea. I've always been curious about this, but you hear people say, I love you more than I did then.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been
True.
moments, any given moment, right, where you're like,
Yeah.
I love this person
Yeah.
more than what I do now. But I know you guys would agree, because of the thick and thin that y'all been through, that you today love each other more, probably more today than you did literally just as soon as last year. And you could probably articulate why,
Right.
So it is making through the hard
That's
times.
the design, isn't it? That's the design God's given for marriage, is that
Yes.
as we demonstrate unconditional love for each other through him and the grace of God that's in us as that third chord, right? Two are better than one, and then the third chord binds. That then has no choice but to be illuminated into the communities, into the families that we connect and engage with. So it's not a chore, it's not a work, it is an overflow. And I think that's what God is after.
Yeah, I really feel like there's probably just a couple of callings we have, especially through me. And one of them is to live a life of legacy. And we want to leave a legacy to our children of what a great marriage looks like and what it takes. We don't hide when we're irritated. We want them to see that,
Right.
Knock down, drag out. So, that just don't happen, but she whipped my rear. And so we don't do that. But, probably the other one is, and this is just where we feel so blessed with you guys, is to be friends. And we've got you and another couple that we feel like God just put us here on earth to be your friend. And so we really are thankful that he's called us to that.
What a great calling, to serve your friends.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so thankful for you all. As we were talking, I'm thinking about, just as a society as a whole, how easily we can discard people and discard things. We want the convenient way out. And the thing that's so beautiful about marriage, when you get on the other side and you've really learned to love unconditionally, where you're unchanged. Now, it may be more difficult and there may be more intentionality in different seasons, but when you really understand, man, this person's got my back.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got their back. I'm not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. That you've weathered the storms of life. There's a place of, when you've given and reciprocated unconditional love, it gives a whole nother layer of understanding of God's love for us and what he does. And being able to be a demonstration of that unconditional love is our heart passion. And so you guys demonstrate that all the time. And we're so grateful for your friendship and the unconditional love you've shown us through your friendship.
Absolutely. Just quickly, I'm reminded that any team becomes better when they have overcome adversity together.
Absolutely.
And I think that in today's society of of lack of delayed gratification and a microwavable, fast food, and all these things, sometimes we just look for too many shortcuts. And I think it's just important to understand, that the reality that, again, when we go through hard times together as a team, we're better on the backside of it. And we know that much more. We've been tested and we know that much more what we're made out of. And so it makes us better.
Yeah, it's really hard to grow if you don't have something that stresses you a little bit.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we want to wind this down. We hate to, but that's the way these podcasts have to go sometimes, especially people that are an hour ahead of you. So thank you all so much. It was an honor to have you on Pillow Talk. And if you would, just tell people where they can find you, and then we'll call it.
We're in Hope Sound. No, I'm just kidding.
We will post their address in the show notes.
I'm just teasing.
No, hey, you can find us at marriedforapurpose.com, and all the information we talked about, you'll be able to find it there.
That's fantastic. Well, guys, thank you again. And hopefully you will grace us with another visit here in the near future.
Woo-hoo! Name the time, man. That's
Ditto.
great.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Been fun. Thank y'all.